What can be said about Donkey Kong? Well, a lot actually, and a fair bit has already been said about it in the past. It's one of the single most important video games ever made thanks to a whole lot of reasons. It got Nintendo into gaming and gave the company its worldwide fame. It was the first video game ever made that featured Mario. It would eventually lead to the West regaining an interest in video games thanks to Nintendo releasing the NES in North America, and its legacy goes even further than that. But I'm not here today to vomit the entire legacy of Donkey Kong at you like so many others have before. That's because this video is not even about the original Donkey Kong. This video is about a fan-made recreation of it for the SNES called Classic Kong. Classic Kong, or Classic Kong Complete as the title screen refers to it, is simple, and the fun and charm it offers is found within that simplicity. While this game on paper is just an outdated update to Donkey Kong, that's exactly what makes it worth playing. It's easy to look at a game like this and dismiss it out of hand on principle alone. It's Donkey Kong on the Super Nintendo, why even bother? But Classic Kong's creators knew exactly what they wanted this game to be, so they tried to make it just that, and lo and behold, it turned out good thanks to that focus. That's the gist of my review, but if you want to know more, hi, I'm Paden, and welcome to Paden's Pixels. Fan games have probably been around for as long as the medium of video games has existed. Unfortunately, thanks to a combination of video games' very poorly documented early years, and fan games occupying a legally gray area, to say the least, it's virtually impossible to figure out what the first fan game was. What we do know is that despite the inherent risks and challenges fan game creators face, they still put their work out there for others to enjoy to this day. Fan games come in many different forms, from legally safe spiritual successors like Demons Ate My Neighbors, to original works in existing universes like Psycho Waluigi, to recreations of games for different platforms, which is where we find Classic Kong. Classic Kong is a great example of why don't judge a book by its cover only goes so far. As soon as you heard that name, I'd be willing to bet that you got a picture in your head of the Donkey Kong arcade game with a fresh coat of paint, and it turns out that's exactly what Classic Kong is. There's no big secrets hiding under Classic Kong's surface, like what happened with the 1994 Game Boy version of Donkey Kong. No entirely new game is waiting to be discovered after beating 100M here, there's just the same scaffold climbing and barrel dodging action which people have been enjoying since 1981. At least, from my standpoint, it's the same gameplay. To be completely honest, I wasn't ever super into the original Donkey Kong. But from what I can tell, it's pretty one-to-one. You can still destroy barrels rolling by on the platform above you if you stand in the right spot with the hammer beneath them. And you'll still annoyingly die if you fall just the slightest bit too far after jumping. The ROMHacking.net page for Classic Kong credits Shiru as the game's lead developer. Whoever you are, Shiru, you did a great job recreating the original game's mechanics and engine. Maybe too well of a job for my taste, since stuff like barrels not getting destroyed thanks to their oddly placed hitboxes ends up being more frustrating than anything else. Again though, all of this is just to show you that there really isn't anything different about how Classic Kong plays when compared to its source game. What really makes Classic Kong worth trying is its presentation.
First things first, let's get you looking sharp.
Music and sound effect wise, everything is kept fairly basic. The sound barrels make when rolling off the edge of platforms is about as advanced as anything gets in the sound effects department. but that's not a bad thing. Classic Kong's developers clearly wanted the game to retain the arcade original's simplicity in as many different areas as possible, and sound was no exception to that goal. This simplicity is present in the music as well, which is made up of several calm covers of Donkey Kong's soundtrack. Overall, the soundtrack has a very pleasant, almost relaxing feeling to it. I'm honestly surprised I went this long without mentioning them, but it's about time I talked about the graphics. The first thing I'd like to point out is that Classic Kong actually has backgrounds for its levels. The original Donkey Kong took place in front of a black void, like most other arcade games of its time, but in Classic Kong, they've swapped out the flat darkness for several highly compressed images of city skylines. Each of those skylines have also been given a distinct color gradient. This look doesn't seem to come from any Mario game, but it may have been inspired by some levels in Donkey Kong Country Returns, which came out 2 years before Classic Kong did. Wherever this look came from, it's a nice addition to Classic Kong's style. It keeps in line with the original game's look, while also adding a semi-surreal feeling to it. While I enjoy the backgrounds, what's in front of them is more of a mixed bag. I'll start off with the good. All of the sprite work for the items, platforms, and enemies does its job just fine. It all has a consistent style which doesn't stray too far from the original game's look, while still managing to show off the distinct pixel art style of Classic Kong well enough. The look of the bold colors and lack of outlines on most things besides the game's main characters reminds me of the 1996 PC game Zombie Wars. I have to admit that I have a soft spot for stuff that looks like this, but I do think this style works well here. Speaking of the game's main characters, it's about time I actually talked about them. Starting with Mario, he's well animated and his base sprite doesn't look too bad when just judging it in the context of this game. But if you compare his sprite here to the original, you can see that some of his proportions are off. He's noticeably thinner here and his hat looks like a steamroller just hit it. Also, Mario's death sprite definitely wasn't meant to be looked at this closely. Ugh. Still, you can tell it's Mario at a glance, so I gotta give the artist points for that. And I like that Mario swings his hammer single-handedly here. You can even see Mario's other hand swinging back and forth at his side while he's using the hammer, which is a great little detail. The last thing I have to say about Mario is that I noticed if you jump in place, he doesn't actually animate at all. His sprite just floats up for a second before falling back down. This is actually a step down from the original game, which had an extra dedicated jumping sprite. Pauline's sprite is clearly meant to be a different take on her original design. This look is fine, but what's funny to me is that in Donkey Kong, Pauline had a kicking animation which happened when DK held her while climbing the ladder at the start of a round. This animation has been dropped in Classic Kong. Yeah, we're now up to 2 instances of sprite removal in a 1981 arcade to 2012 SNES port of Donkey Kong. Still, I'd say Pauline's sprite looks better than Mario's or DK's, I just wish it had more use. I've saved the worst for last with Donkey Kong. Well, worst might be too strong of a word, but DK's sprite really needed a second pass before it got put in the game, and I can tell you why very easily. That doesn't look like Donkey Kong. Like Mario, DK's proportions have been altered, but DK's are even more messed up. His arms are longer, his head is bigger, his mouth is way bigger, and yet he's still smaller than usual. His climbing sprites also look off. If not for his gorilla feet, from behind he'd look like he's just some guy in a brown bodysuit. On top of that, he doesn't even pound on his chest in Classic Kong. Instead, he just punches the ground like a whiny kid. Come on, this is Donkey Kong, let him show off a bit instead. This DK just lacks the personality of the big toothy grin original. So to recap, Mario looks like Mario, Pauline looks like a redesign trying to capture the same feel of the original sprite, and Donkey Kong looks like a generic gorilla. Where's the consistency? This isn't game-breaking or anything, but I can't help but wonder what Classic Kong's artist was going for when it came to designing the looks of the game's signature trio. Well, sadly, I don't think we'll ever know much of anything about Studio Bubble Zap, let alone what design choices they made during Classic Kong's development. After looking up Bubble Zap, I came across their website, which is currently being used to advertise an Android game called Air Kingdoms. It's a good thing that this information about Air Kingdoms is still up, because the handful of YouTube videos showcasing it, and what's written about it on Bubble Zap's website are all that's left of it. One of those videos also happens to be the game's official trailer, which was uploaded right at the start of 2019. I find it weird that in the relatively short time frame from then to now, all traces of this game have been wiped from the Play Store. It honestly didn't even look like that bad of a game either. I tried to reach out to Bubble Zap for comment, but they never got back to me. Whatever Bubble Zap is up to now, if anything, is a mystery to me. Regardless, Classic Kong still exists online and is free to go and download on romhacking.net. So, if what you've seen in this video interests you, I'd say go for it. Sure, I can complain about how some of the artwork is a little wonky looking as much as I'd like to, and how some of the mechanics aren't my favorite, but ultimately, this is still a very competently made free port of Donkey Kong for the Super Nintendo. That should tell you everything you need to know. I give Classic Kong a 7 out of 10. Hey, welcome to the end of the video, glad you can make it here. I don't actually have a script for this part, I just wanted to personally say thank you very much for checking out my video and giving it a watch to the end. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. If you really liked it, press subscribe on my little channel button. And if you really liked it and want to know what else I'm going to get up to, go ahead and ring the bell because I will be uploading more in the future. I am just getting started here. At any rate, thanks so much for watching.